Hi, welcome to the Whitey White Guy Show. I'm Whitey, and today I'm going to do a review of the film Pump Up the Volume, which came out in 1990. It was directed by Alan Moyle, music by Cliff Martinez, and this film stars Christian Slater, the gorgeous Samantha Mathis, Mimi Kennedy, Seth Green has a small role in this, a whole slew of people that you've probably seen in something, but probably don't know their names. Like that's the bulk of the cast is so there's a guy, for example, Andy Romano. I've seen him in a bunch of stuff until I couldn't have told you his name. He's one of those. So Christian Slater, Samantha Mathis, and Seth Green, the only people you're gonna recognize their names. Again, it came out in 1990, and it's a really interesting film. So what you have is Christian Slater plays a high school student in this small suburb of, I want to say, like Arizona. And if you don't remember the 90s, the dot-com boom was taking place. Everybody was buying personal computers, and all these people were moving out of the cities into the suburbs and nice quiet towns. And this was popping up all over the country. Where I grew up, it's the same thing. So Christian Slater's family has just moved into this area. He's new. He doesn't know anybody. And according to him and the logic of the film, like back home, he was like okay in terms of popularity and stuff. But in this new school with all these new kids, especially I think he's like a junior or a senior, he's just out of his element. And then by God, we moved around a lot when I was a kid, and I can relate to that. When I was in a town for a couple, 3 years, the few times that happened in K through 12, I was okay socially, had some friends, had some dates, that kind of stuff. But when you just move to a place, man, it is tough, especially if you're doing it in high school. Just getting started, that's not easy. So he's super socially awkward um, at school, and he has a hard time talking to the girls. Man, ain't that the way it is? So he, in his basement, his room's in his basement, his parents upstairs, very well-to-do, comfortable, upper middle-class family. He starts a radio show, like on a public radio network. With no, the first day nobody was listening, and then little by little, people start cluing into this, and he starts gathering a following. But it's a controversial show, which we'll get into in a minute. So he doesn't name himself. He's got a voice thing that disguises his voice. He goes by Happy Harry Hardon as his radio personality, and he's always pretending to be feeding the geese for some reason. But he talks about and his dad is somebody in the school system, like a higher up, like above the principal in the school region or something. I don't know how it works. And so he's privy to information about what's going on with the kids that the average person would know. At one point, he's in his dad's room at his dad's desk. He's looking, according to him, looking for stamps. I believe it is true. And he comes across a document about this girl that just got expelled because she got pregnant. Um, and so there's shenanigans. Not even shenanigans. There's something disturbing happening at the school. These kids keep getting expelled, not having done anything worthy of expulsion. We'll get back to that in a minute. So Christian Slater has this underground radio show in the early 90s, pre-social media. The internet existed, but it was like very rudimentary, and you had to go to. There wasn't like search engines. You had to know the actual email. Just very much the Stone Age comparison to now. But nobody really had the internet, and so what's interesting about this show, among this movie, among things, is that what Christian Slater is doing is basically what the internet became, what social media would become 20 something years later. That's what he's doing. And so people would write letters to him, call him to the same way you comment in the comment section. And so he's tapped into what the kids are up to, and their parents are oblivious. Samantha Mathis is a fan of the show but doesn't know who he is at first. They eventually meet and they start a relationship. She finds out who he is. And then at school, what is going on is that the principal, whose name is Humana Crestwood, Loretta Crestwood, is doing something that's illegal. She's expelling these kids because they have low performance scores to keep her average up, which that's a big no-no. You can't do that. And this is among things it's leading to tension. So on the surface, they live in this quaint little suburb, and everything in appearances looks like, wow, what a nice place to grow up. But there's shadiness going on, behind closed doors type of deal. And his radio show starts to expose that, and they're hunting for this guy. But I love this movie because, for example, the principal's a pretty evil lady, but the teachers aren't. The one guy who's like a coach, I don't know what sport, he's just coach, who I believe is like the assistant principal or his kid or something. He ends up like assaulting one of these kids, who got expelled and then came back on campus saying, "I have a right to be here." He's got a sign, "I have a right to be here," and he gets roughed up by Mr. Murdoch. But it's one of those things, like, if you're watching the film, it's not so much that Coach Murdoch is like a horrible guy. It's all of this is winding him up. He's got some volatility in him, and this is spinning him like a top, and finally he snaps. So the teachers aren't portrayed as horrible people as much as a couple of them are misguided, but that some of them are sympathetic to what the kids are going through. And then the press gets involved because this is a story, and it's the same thing there. So there's interesting scenes where the big kind of jockey, egotistical reporter is like, "We got to go bust this guy's ass," and some of the guys at the crew are going, "Man, you don't remember what it's like to be in high school." They can relate to what these kids are going through. So the whole community gets into this situation where they're like, you're opposed to Happy Harry Hardon and what he's doing, but the kids finally have an outlet, and some of the parents and some of the adults in the community are going, "Dude, I get it though. I understand what they're going through. I went through that in high school." So it's a really interesting mass psychology and just a study into people and how they operate, and it just turns the whole town on its head. This Happy Harry Hardon character that Christian Slater's playing. Again, he starts a romance with Samantha Mathis. Oh my gosh, yeah. She is just exudes gorgeousness. Not just aesthetic, just she could just be standing there doing nothing, and you're like, God damn, she's hot. She has sexuality like crazy. So it's a really good cast. With the exception of Christian Slater, Samantha Mathis, I don't know. Seth Green has a small role in this as just one of the students. He wasn't 1990. Nobody would have known who he was. Samantha Mathis, I don't think, was a big name at the time. So really, it's the Christian Slater show with a bunch of smaller, lesser known names. Samantha Mathis after this went on to do Super Mario Brothers. She was the female lead, a female love interest in that. To Luigi, to an extent, she was there, and went on to do a whole bunch. She was in the movie The Punisher that came out in 2005. She's been in a bunch of stuff since. This kind of launched her career, to my knowledge. Probably done a few things before this, but this was put her on the map. So again, it's the Christian Slater show. Everybody knows Christian Slater at this point, and Christian Slater. There's some good Christian Slater, and there's some bad Christian Slater. There's some good Christian Slater performances. Wow, Christian Slater performances. There's hard rain Christian Slater. I don't know that he's ever been like bad. More as he's played bad roles in bad films. This is outstanding performance. This is Christian Slater on crushing it. This is him at his best. He just was this character, understood it completely, and crushed it. I understand why Christian Slater was big at the time, because if his whole career was this, he'd be huge in life, and he got big for a lot of years for good reason. But it's one of his lesser known performances, and of course, it's one of his best performances. He's done a lot of dumb action movies. What was the one with the John Travolta and the nuclear bombs are going to go off? Not a bad performance per se, but the movie is kind of schmaltzy. This is crushing it. So naturally, I'm the only guy who knows about it at all. Just like I just did a review for Switchback. All these really great movies with really great characters and writing and directing. Oh man, it's just great. $50 at the box office. I'm the only one who's ever heard of it. That's why my channel's not bigger. One, I'm hard to look at, and two, I don't the big what the crowd's doing. I could give a shit. I don't care about anything until 10 years later. So over here, Star Fox 64 on Nintendo Super Nintendo 64. Love that game. 15 years ago. 1997, pretty good. The early mid 90s, late 90s. It got really bad in 98, 99. Anyway, so I really like this movie. Pump up the volume. It's there's nothing epic about it that I could tell you about. That it's all practicals, no special effects, not a big budget, not a good cast, but not a well-known cast. It's a devil's in the details. It's the kids calling in with their troubles and what they're going through, and they're being ignored by their parents. Everybody's so obsessed about perfection that they're not actually paying attention to their kids, and it's the very thing that South Park brought to light with the South Park movie, saying, you're so obsessed about what your kids are watching on TV, you're not actually paying attention to your kids. Your kids are the important thing, not the appearance of them. And so this movie hit the nail on the head before South Park did. They did a great job. There's a guy named Billy Morissette. I haven't seen him anything else. I thought he did a really terrific job in this film. It is one of those things where obviously these are college age kids. There's a few kids who were probably in high school at the time that are small characters, but the principal characters they're obviously in their 20s playing teenagers. It's fine. It's not glaring. It's not egregious. But that kid looks like he's closer to 30 than 18. But he does such a good job. He nails the character. He plays Maz Mazzilli. Um, but he really, in just a few scenes and a few pieces of dialogue, you felt for the guy. You feel for what the kids are going through of being neglected by society and not having an outlet. And then when they finally get one, the whole of society says you can't have that outlet. This kid's he's uncouth. He says dirty words, so you can't do that. Meanwhile, he's the only one who understands what they're going through. So pump up the volume. So at one point, there's the popular girl who's a redhead. She's gorgeous. She's successful. She's going to a nice college. But there's a scene where she's lying in bed listening to the radio, and then when the father comes in, he said, "Turn it off because she can't listen to it, but she connects." And he's like, "Why are you up so late? You should be studying for the test. You're going to a big, you got to get you into Yale." And it's like, the father means well, but he's not listening to his kid. And so eventually she gets on there's the two sides. There's people who hate Happy Harry Hardon, played by Christian Slater, and what he represents, the freedom he represents. They want perfection, not freedom. Very much Dead Poets Society. I got to do a review of that. And then there's the people who are like, hey, there's something sketchy going on here. And she joins that team. She joins the less cool kids and all that stuff because she sees what's going on and appreciates what they're talking about. And then it gets exposed that Miss Crestwood, again, she's breaking the law. But it's worse than that. She's like demonizing these kids, and they're good kids. And one of the teachers, played by Robert Shekin, plays David Deaver. He starts off kind of on the team of the principal, but he too is like, there's once he really gets just one piece of dialogue, but she's like, these kids don't care about their education. He goes, they're just kids. So again, it was interesting to see a film about ethics of kids, high school kids. Yeah, they don't want to do their homework and they're not going to do what's best for them in life, but they're human freaking beings. And so to see that debate, I thought it was a fascinating film. It's, again, excellently directed, excellent performances, great writing. I really enjoyed Pump Up the Volume. If you like good movies with good performances that say something about society, this is the film for you. So that's it here for me. So, Whitey White Guys Show, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. I got more movie reviews and more retro video games gameplay coming up. I should do some actual reviews of these games instead of just playing them up. Alright, I'll do that. So comment in the comment section. If you haven't seen Pump Up the Volume, go check it out and let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. And I'll see you guys on the next review. Cheers.